Is your Sri Lankan girlfriend invited? That's a fun story. I think I can tell that fun story one day. Well, it's not really a fun story. It's just a story about my first kiss ever. Do you guys remember your first kiss ever? Have you guys had your first kiss ever yet? It's a wonderful thing. It was one of those very cute movie scene kind of deal where two good friends are hanging out and they kind of just start like tickling each other kind of deal. And then you just start inching closer and closer. Ooh. That was a good first kiss. But I understand that a lot of people have bad first kisses because for some people, they just want to get it over with right away. Like, I just want to kiss someone so I can get over that first kiss. But not me, though. What was that girl's name? Why do you guys want to know? Well, her name was... No, I'm not going to say it. Because people are just going to look through my contacts. It's like, who is it? Hey, Toast talked about you on his stream. Do you know this guy? He said you kissed him. Is that true? I haven't had my first kiss yet and I'm 25. Well, I had my first kiss when I was 20. And I had my first female experience way later. I did not bang the first girl I kissed, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, but that was about how you say 7-year gap between my first kiss and the first girl I banged. So don't get excited about your first kiss, because the next time you touch a girl might be 7 years later. Sheesh. Female experience. Wow, how am I supposed to say it? No. I've told you guys I'm a recovering incel. Let me tell you about incel Toast. Okay, I wasn't an incel. So incel generally refers to someone with very sexist and misogynistic views, which I definitely do not have. But I treated women like they were a different species. It's like, oh, a girl, wow. I'm not like that anymore. But you know how nerds are very nerdy and socially awkward and terrible around women to a point where they kind of treat them like a different species kind of deal? It's like that. Not like, oh, fuck these chicks, they won't bang me kind of deal. Like, I understood the problem. Like, if I wasn't getting enough female attention, it was not their fault at all. It was my fault. Why is everyone typing welcome back, Daddy Toast? Aria raid? Thank you very much, Aria. Very kind of you. Let's do a cooking stream together now that I'm back on Twitch. But I'm really lazy to set it up. So if you set it up, I'll be there. What was I saying? Yes. So back to being an incel in my heydays. Um, I researched. Oh God, I'm so ashamed to say this. I I tried internet searching uh, like tactics to get girls to like you. It's very cringe, I know, but that's how lost I was. That's how out of touch I was. So I would read stuff called like pickup moves, and here's the thing. Here's the cringe thing. It's like imagine like a 17-year-old skinny Asian kid that don't have any friends and zero social skills, googling how to pick up girls into Google. Unfortunately, most of the advice out there for that kind of stuff is very objectifying towards women. Like, oh yeah, like they refer to women as like sevens, eights, nines, tens, ones, twos, threes. So it was very like objectifying. But I was more interested in, okay, that's great and all. Like, it's great for the people who are hooking up with girls, but how do I actually talk to a girl? That's the part I'm interested in, because they kind of skip past to the part where you're approaching a girl at a club. It's like, first of all, I'm not even gonna be at a club. And second of all, slow your roll there. How do I actually just talk to girls? Um, there are some parts of it that was helpful, which is like get out of your comfort zone. So one thing I practice doing is when I go to a restaurant or something and they say, "Hey, what do you like to order?" I would ask, "What do you recommend?" Just a very simple extra question. Just to like get you used to the idea of saying one extra line to an individual. Hey, what would you like to order? It's like, oh, what would you recommend? And he said, well, I recommend the spaghetti. And I'd be like, okay, I'll take the spaghetti. Um, but now I'm more comfortable with talking to human beings. I think mostly because when you don't talk to a lot of people, you kind of overthink your social interactions. Like, oh man, I hope I don't sound stupid. I hope I don't sound silly. But for everyone out there living their life, the last thing they'll think about is an interaction with some random person. Like, oh yeah, that guy at work today, that customer asked what I would recommend. That was kind of weird. He's not gonna think about that. Or like Uber drivers, when they ask a question, I try to ask one back. When they say, "Hey, how's your day?" I would say, "I'm good. How's yours?" Instead of just "I'm good." It's just practicing. It sounds very basic, but I had a lot of difficulties with that. Like my goal was to just end the conversation as quick as possible, just because I don't. It was a lot of anxiety to try and talk to another human being. Since there, I've definitely gotten better at it. Seeing as how now I have a job based around talking and talking and talking. But what I like about this job of talking is that we're not having a conversation to a chat. No offense. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say. I mean, I can see you guys typing in the chat, but I can be selective. Like someone asks, "How's your day, Toast?" I can be like, I don't want to answer that. So I can just ignore it. So I can pick and choose good questions from chat. It's like a conversation flow that I control, right? Um, but it's not necessarily someone talking to me, which is why when I interact with streamers I'm unfamiliar with, I tend to be more quiet than usual. So, yeah, learning how to talk to people is hard as an introvert. I wish I can teach all introverts out there. Because I know I sound like one of, you always hear those stories about celebrities who started off like super poor and they made it kind of deal. And it's like, yeah, look at me, I made it. But you always kind of roll your eyes. It's like, oh, it's one of those feel good story. Um, but I do wish I can kind of reach the introverts out there who have a lot of anxiety talking in a public space, because I used to have that. And I'm not just saying that, right? During presentation class, I have a piece of paper and I would just read it. And I know you're not supposed to just read it. You're supposed to make eye contact. Blah, 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 blah. But when I went up to the front of the class, I just read it. I didn't care if I was gonna get docked points. I just fucking read it and read it as fast as I could so I can get off the stage. But eventually, I've said this before, what made me like it is just because it's like a performance, right? It's an opportunity to make people laugh. That's what made me like public speaking, was it's an opportunity to make people laugh, an opportunity to make people entertained. And that made it more fun to me. Also, if you're an introvert, chances are you listen a lot. Chances are in group hangouts, someone would inevitably point at you. It's like, hey, why are you so quiet? And I hated that. It's like, yeah, I'm a quiet person. I mean, don't bring attention to it. Yeah, being an introvert. What's the population split between introverts and extroverts? I feel like there's way more introverts than extroverts. Or maybe just because of the space I'm in, which is like gamers, online gamers. There's just more introverts. It's definitely more noticeable in the gaming space. Because when I see an extrovert, I remember. It's very apparent in my head and my head movies when I think at night if someone's an extrovert. Because you don't meet too much of them in the space. Who would you consider to be an introvert? Well, I'm an introvert. I would say Mi Young's an introvert. Huh. Sykkuno, I would say Sykkuno is more in the middle these days. At the beginning, well, here's the thing about Sykkuno. He doesn't have problems making conversation with people. Um, if you guys have seen him in real life, which the majority of you haven't, he's pretty good at talking to, like, when we were getting our suits for Vegas, he was making good conversation with the person helping us. Uh, so I actually don't know. Maybe something in between. Yeah, maybe something in between. Because Sykkuno actually likes talking. That's what makes him a great streamer. He's really good at talking. Lily actually has been trying to talk to people too. Oh, fun story in Vegas about Lily. We were at a semi-fancy restaurant, Major Domo, by a chef called David Chang, and we sat down, and we had a dedicated server, a waitress, and she brings us our food. And the second time she came around, I saw that she had a Harry Potter tattoo on her forearm. And Lily's a huge Harry Potter fan. So I just nudged Lily. It's like, oh, hey, our server has a Harry Potter tattoo. It's the triangle with the circle and the line through it. And Lily decided then and there she's gonna be friends with this waitress. So the third time the waitress came over, she's like, "Oh my God, do you like Harry Potter?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do." She's like, "Yeah, that's a really cool tattoo you got there. What house are you in?" And they were just like, "Wow, actually, I started off as a Hufflepuff, but recently when I took the test again, it put me in Ravenclaw." It's like, and then Lou was like, "Oh, Ravenclaw? That was what I was gonna guess. You're so cool." um, and she drew a picture of the waitress as a wizard on a piece of paper and gave it to her. So I thought that was pretty like extrovert kind of deal, but I think she's still an introvert overall. Like it took courage. Like she had to psych herself up for it. Yeah. Yeah, introvert and extrovert is hard to define because everyone's kind of a bit of both. Like with Michael's really good at talking with people, but he doesn't go out of his way to like talk to people as well. When we were at a Riot event and Matt Mercer was there, and he's like one of the most famous voice actors out there, and they just started talking like out of nowhere, and like Michael was like being able to keep the conversation going, which was very cool. Yeah, Matt Mercer is technically the most subbed. He's part of the most subbed Twitch channel, right? When I think introverts, I think people who don't really like talking in huge crowds or big groups. Like when I go to parties, I hate the party area. I hate the beer pong area. I hate the kitchen area where the drinks are. I hate like the big lounge where everyone's sitting. I love the room at the end of the hallway with 2, 3, maybe 4 people in it. And you can sit there and just talk to each other. Or like a balcony. Or like a rooftop with 1 or 2 other people. It's so I don't know how people do big groups. That's so much pressure to say something interesting enough that everyone in that room finds fascinating. But when it's just 3 people, 4 people, you're having a conversation, right? But some people love partying. And I never understood it. Like I can see why partying is fun, but when I drink alcohol, I tend to start throwing up before I start having fun. Like drink alcohol, tastes terrible, super expensive, head getting fuzzy, drink more alcohol, tastes terrible still, head really fuzzy, headaches kick in, nausea kicks in. Either stop or keep going and bleh. Weed better than alcohol? Yes. Not that I do weed, but if I did do weed, um, which isn't something I recommend because in some country weed is super illegal and you can go to jail if not killed. But yeah, I find my hypothetical weed to be more of a enjoyable experience than alcohol. Something about alcohol, I don't get it. I don't get it. I retain too much self control on alcohol. I think alcohol, like, the goal is for you to have a good time and like lose your inhibition. I just start throwing up before I really lose control. But in my hypothetical weed moment, it's like it's a more different experience, right? With alcohol, it's just I feel the same, except my head hurts and my stomach is uncomfortable.